History's made at the Bassmaster Classic. A first time ever, a Canadian wins the Super Bowl of bass fishing, and we were there. Let's talk about it.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.
Welcome back to the OneCast, folks. Ben here. I got Pete and Trey. Probably familiar with us already, but we're going to come back here and run our suck a little bit. We just got back from the Bassmaster Classic, so we're going to talk about it. We were at the Expo most of the time, but it should be a good event, and we're going to touch on something that happened right before the Classic too. But before we get started, just remember, go over to OneCast Fishing, use that code, TheOneCast, save 10%, and a shout out to Herbie and Ken, the two most recent users of the OneCast. So we're going to start shouting folks out. That was a good idea. I think Pete, you had that idea. So we're going to start doing that. But definitely appreciate it. It helps us out. So make sure you go over there and do that. And welcome back here. We had a lot of fun right this last week at the Bassmaster Classic. I know this is airing after, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. But first, right before the Bassmaster Classic, MLF had scheduled their Douglas and Cherokee event right there in Tennessee, right there at Knoxville. There's probably a reason why they did that. And something cool happened. And Trey, you love Tim boats. Actually, you both run Tim boats. But why don't you tell us about what happened there at Cherokee and Douglas?
Yeah, I think besides Jeff Gustafson being the first Canadian to win the Classic, I think history was made with Keith Pochet running I want to say an 18-foot aluminum boat running all the way up to the dam or the spillway, taking him over 2 hours to get to his spot. He's running a little 115 horsepower engine on his tin boat, his Gator Tracks, and he ran up there and fished in a location that none of the fiberglass boats could get, and he whacked him. I mean, he put, oh geez, I don't even know what his weight was for his five fish limit, but he was catching some big smallmouth on jigs, like really small jigs. And, hats off to him turning around and fishing right after the event and fishing the Classic. So I don't know how he's doing it, but it's pretty cool to see it happening. In fact, I think we drove right over Douglas Lake on our way to the Classic, didn't we?
Yeah. It's in the sign there on I-40, it says the French Broad River. And I don't know, I think there's two bridges on that lake when I look on the map. So I don't know where Dustin Connell, he caught like a 4-pounder right under a bridge, and there were some docks and houses around it. So I don't know if that was right under that bridge on I-40 or if it was somewhere else on the lake, but hopefully we just drove over where he caught that big fish, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Pochet, he caught one big largie for sure on the last day too on that, and some of it was on a jig, and he also put today that he was throwing a hollow body, like a 4.5-inch swim bait as well with a belly weight hook. So, he handicapped himself probably for quite a few tournaments by running that boat this year, but he also set himself up for a couple tournaments to fish stuff that other people can't, because that lake's still on fill up, spring draw up, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. I'm sure there's a technical term. Somebody will correct me.
All that river system's down. What was the Tennessee River? It was still down, 16 foot or something?
Yeah, when we drove over Douglas and the French Broad there, you can see it's 16 or 17 foot down, from winter drawdown. So he I'm sure, looked at the schedule and made a decision on the boat he was going to run, and then knew he may have an opportunity. And I think it was Ott Defoe tried to get up there and ended up tearing his boat up. And there was a few other people that tried to get up there and couldn't. So
the same thing with, I think Pochet did that on Toho too, right? Kissimmee. He got to a lake that no one else even knew existed or could get there. So it definitely opens up waters. I think it's cool. It's the boat is a tool, just like your rods, reels, or graphs and all. And anglers are selecting tools, and we're going to get here in a minute about. We can talk about Gussie's tool, his boat that he uses, because it's unique for a bass angler on the pro circuit. But I like anglers choosing, their pieces of equipment based upon how they want to fish and strategize. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. Pochet runs that boat that he was in on his Off the Grid series, which is pretty cool. However, he doesn't get to use all of the capabilities that little boat has on the Pro Tour, such as the winch and stuff like that. So, and he did the same thing last year, winning that Open, man. He caught a lot of flack and stuff, but he fished the way he wanted to fish. He didn't violate any of those black and white rules that we talked about, and he just found something different.
Yeah, yeah. And I think 3 years ago in an Open, he tried to switch boats and run a small rig like that, and ended up. I think he was leading or winning and got DQ'd because you can't do that. So Obviously, he knows what his strengths are. He's great at those backwater, those tight areas, and so he chose a boat that lets him do it. Now, what we didn't confirm, and I still haven't, did he run that boat in the Classic also? Is he fishing both series out of that little boat, or did he run a different boat?
I don't know. We did not confirm that.
So I tried looking it up. It looks like on his Instagram page, all he has is that Gator boat on there. Yeah. So
he's handicapped himself on both series on certain events, especially when they get up north on the Great Lakes. And it works to his advantage in MLF because he could run 2 hours and still fish for 6. Whereas if he tries to do that in a bass event, he's only going to get 3.5 or 4 hours to fish because he has to be back for check-in and then weigh-in. In MLF, he can fish till that final buzzer.
That is a wonderful and great point there. So BPT period 1 starts at blast off, correct?
Yep.
It's not like the cups where they get to their spot and then they have a lines in time.
Mm-hmm.
So MLF, like, fishing starts at blast off, but when the tournament ends, you don't have to be back. So you're actually right. You can run 2.5 hours, fish the entire day. Whereas if you're fishing another tour, you'd have to make that 2.5 hour trip back, which guys have done before in different tournaments, making 100-mile runs and all. And we've seen that before down in South Carolina. What's that bay down there? They run up the Cooper River.
We talked about
we
it.
looked it up. Winyah Bay, exactly.
Bay, yep.
Right.
We probably said that wrong, so somebody will correct us, I'm sure.
We may see long runs at Sabine River. We see it at St. Lawrence sometimes, going down the lake and all. So, but with MLF, it's definitely an advantage that you don't have to be back for a weigh-in. So that's pretty cool that he's able to take care of, take advantage of that as well.
Good.
I was going to say, I like that, though. Like, we all have our preferences on the series that we like to follow. Of course, I'm a huge bass fan. I like the MPFL. But I do like that you get to maximize the amount of fishing that you get on the BPT, especially now with a 5-fish limit, right? We all know how those fish at the end of the day, sometimes they turn on, especially in the spawn or whatever the case may be. So that's one of the few things that I like about that series. So kudos to those guys for doing that. What were we going to say?
Yeah, I've watched a lot less this year. I was kind of going the same way of the BPT just because I'm not a fan at all of them to go into the 5-fish. It doesn't excite me. It's still fishing, but it's different. But that is one of the cool things about it is you're able to strategize a little bit with stuff like that. And Poche's using it to his advantage, and he won that one. There'll be a couple other tournaments he'll have a chance to use that small boat and maybe help him. I don't think it can help him a whole lot on Murray, but there's some other bodies of water that he will have an advantage. But it'll be really interesting to see that lake or that boat when they get up to the Great Lakes this year in that little Gator Tracks. But it'll say a lot about Gator Tracks if it handles it well.
Yeah. I mean, I got to check one of those Gator Tracks out at the Expo, and I know we're all over the place here, and we're talking about Keith Poche, and we're talking about the Classic, but the Gator Tracks boats are made like M1A1 Abrams tanks. Like, they are so solid. Mm-hmm. I feel like I could shoot it with an RPG and it'd be fine. You know what I'm saying? So it will be interesting to see. The last thing I want to say about Poche, he's put himself at a disadvantage with bass because he missed the entire first event. And I'm wondering if he has his own internal strategy that he's working out in his head, like maybe that first year's free, going back to the elites. I don't know if it's free anymore. I can't remember how the rules are. But he really put himself at a disadvantage not fishing that Lake Okeechobee event with bass. But, man, he turned his season around with a BPT. And at this point, it's like, I don't know if he's going to have the ability to fish both well. You know what I mean?
So I think that decision was made early on at the Kissimmee Toho tournament because he made the cut. I don't remember if he made championships round or not for BPT, but that pretty much screwed the rest of his bass event for Okeechobee. But he had done well enough that it makes sense, especially for a tournament. You can't leave when you're winning, when you're on a hot streak. And then he comes to this event and he wins it. So, like, when you start figuring out which one to focus on for Angler of the Year and dollars, he's probably going to lean to the MLF the rest of the year because he's so far ahead, right with his points compared to his finish in bass right now. So
and that first year's not free. You get 2 years, and if you don't requalify, you're out. So I'm not going to say he's unqualified himself from the elites after 2 years, but there's a good chance he doesn't requalify. That 0 and no points in that first tournament are going to be very, very tough to come back from and requalify over 2 year average, especially depending on how many anglers Bass wants to cut, because it's not they have it in the rules, but they change it from time to time.
He just needs. Let's just be conservative. He needs to be top 80 over the next 2 years. I think that's doable, even with a donut in there.
It's tough. It's average too. It's not, so that 0 hurts him bad. It's going to be tough for him to requalify. He might do it. It's hard to say, and it depends on if guys come back legends. If KVD decides to come back out of retirement and things like that, like there's a lot of things at play. But he's having success on BPT. He won one, finished high in the first one. So there's money to be made, and there's a reason guys don't fish both, and there's a reason John Cox only tried it for 1 year. Yeah, it's just I don't think it's sustainable. It's tough. That's a lot of fishing.
I give him power for trying.
Absolutely.
And his stamina. If folks don't realize, so Poche won Cherokee and Douglas, and the very next morning, he turned around and blasted off for the Bassmaster Classic. So he fished that entire tournament, and probably during his off days in between those rounds for MOF, he's probably looking at the Tennessee River and trying to do some practice for the Classic. So he fished 7, 8, 9, I don't know, maybe 12 straight days or something, and a high-level competitive tournament. Like,
missed the cut by 1/100 of an ounce.
Yeah, he almost made the cut. Could you imagine the story, the GOAT story, the greatest of all time, if he would have won Cherokee and Douglas and 4 days later won the Classic?
Yeah.
That would have been quite impressive. I kind of wish it would have happened, but we also got history made.
That's true.
Yeah. So the Classic, I guess we can roll into that.
I think that's a good transition over to
the Classic. Yeah, it's a good time to talk about it. So, Gussie, wire to wire. He won there 2 years ago in a regular Elite Series event. And it was a month or two, one way or the other. And he did the exact same thing as he did when he won the last one, in the exact same spot, the exact same baits, the exact same strategy. The only difference was this time he used forward-facing sonar to help him key on a fish. Last time he didn't have it yet because he's a Minn Kota guy and it wasn't released. So he did it with 360 last time and identified those fish and won it. So it was an exciting tour. It was a lot more exciting than I thought it was going to be because it really looked like he was going to run away with it. And he struggled on the last day. Maybe a little bit of drama, we can get into, but it was exciting. The one thing about working those events is you don't really get to see weigh, and so we didn't really get to experience all that. We were busy at the expo. Everybody that stopped by and said hello. It was great to meet you. We appreciate you all trying the product. And look forward to hearing about it, and also hopefully some new listeners. We gave out a pile of stickers that linked to the podcast, but so we didn't really get to see the weigh-in. But
but I think we watched the coverage.
We did.
So we went home every night to our little Airbnb and. Well, our second one because we had some issues with the first one. Maybe we'll tell that story in a bit. But we went back. We watched the midday update. We watched the coverage, see what was going on. Of course, throughout the day, we're pulling out our phones, checking Bass Track, pulling up the coverage when it's a little slow there in the expo. Towards the end of the day, when people were going to weigh in, and it was definitely a struggle for most people, I would say. Limits were hard to come by. With the exception, even Gussie, the last day, he didn't have a limit. Mm-hmm. So, it was definitely difficult, but he actually, he slayed them the first 2 days. And there were some good, I think there were several 4 or 5 pounders caught that kind of surprised me with the number of fish that were actually caught in there.
Yeah, so over a 3-day period, Gussie had 42 pounds and some change to take the W, but it was neck and neck. And then we talked about this before with the Sabine River, right? Like, I can't stand the Sabine River. Like, this was a grind. This was a grind. And this was cool to see Gussie, who, in my opinion, and I've never met him personally, but a very humble, very professional individual that is a good steward of the profession, represents his sponsors very well, represents Bass very well, and I don't think I've ever heard anybody say anything negative about him. He went out there, he used his Canadian powers and his strengths and fished the way he wanted to fish. And I got to give a huge shout out to the way that Bass is doing this now, because so many people were bored with forward-facing sonar entertainment, but now they put up a screen in the bottom right corner to where you can see what the angler's seeing. So we got to see Gussie on our little 8-inch phones, during the expo, target these smallmouth who were isolated in, 25 foot of water or whatever it was, and Demiki rigged them. Mm-hmm. And that was super entertaining. And Gussie, we talked about it before with Poche running a 10 rig. Gussie runs a 10 rig. He runs a northern rig, a Lund boat, a Pro V Bass 2075, I believe. And he just put his spot lock on, and I think he's got target lock too. And he went to town doing what he's really good at. Not that he can't catch largemouth, because he does relatively well in Florida. But that was interesting to see. But you guys are right. We didn't get to see a lot of it. So we got to see most of the recaps and where working the Expo.
And that should end the live scope debate for all these people out here who don't think it should be in tournaments, because you got to see that just because the fish are on the screen doesn't mean you're going to catch them. I mean, if you watch the last day coverage, how many times he had 4, 5, 6, 7 fish come up to his bait, nose up to it, and then just right back down. And we all have it on our boats, and we've all watched it.
Yeah.
So if you honestly think that having forward facing just means that they eat every single time you get to put them in the boat, Gussie had 2 fish on the last day.
Yeah.
He caught enough weight the first 2 days to carry him, luckily. But the last day, it's not that he didn't have fish around him. It's not that he wasn't near fish. It's not they weren't looking at his bait. He only got 2.
And they were quality bites, at least, though.
Well, but the thing is, on the Tennessee River, is they have to be 8. There's a slot, so they have to be over 18 inches. Small, and over 18-inch smallmouth is a 3.5 pounder better. That's a big smallmouth.
Yeah.
So it makes it really tough. And that typically, when you look at tournaments on that river, whether it's the elites or MLF or even local stuff, typically whoever can find that smallmouth bite is the guy that's going to take the money, or girl that's going to take the money in that tournament. Just because if you can fill the boat with 5 18-inch smallmouth, you're at 15 pounds already, which is a big bag for that river.
And was he down in Tellico? Was that where?
Yeah, I think he ran to the dam all the way at the end of Tellico, pretty much, or something down like a shipping lane. I don't know what he fishes down there. I'm not familiar enough with the body.
And this is the problem with us being at the Expo all the time, because we didn't get to watch all that coverage. But I'm pretty sure he was down there in Tellico, which is
maybe we can ask Drew Benton.
Yeah, he definitely knows where it's at. GPS spot lock to the key.
Yeah, that's a little bit of. So that's a little bit of. I guess it's not really a controversy, but Drew Benton's got a faster boat and beat Gussie to that spot on the final day, and Gussie did the right thing and just kind of rolled on to his next spot. He was much nicer than I would have been. That's a tough call. I mean, $300,000, a classic title on the last day. Not everybody's going to have the same moral compass. I don't even know if it's a moral decision, but
I guess who knows, right?
At the end of the day, Gussie won, and so it's not a debate. But if he doesn't and Benton wins, who knows?
Yeah. I mean, local pressure, those guys build that into their calculus, and I'm sure that they also build in other anglers finding the same juice hole that they found built into their calculus. But there is something to be said. Like if you're in the lead from day one, which he was day 1 leader, day 2 leader. If you know exactly where somebody else is fishing and you go and take that spot from them, and you know that you don't have a fighting chance to even pull out a W, even though he did, because
he had a chance to win.
Because the Super 6, for those of you who don't know, the Classic fishes, there was 56 anglers in the Classic this year. And those 6 additional anglers were Bass Nation winners. There was a Bassmaster Team Trail, college and stuff like that. So 56 anglers on the roster overall. And then 25 get cut after day 2. And then so you got the remaining of the field.
No, they keep 25. They don't cut 25.
All right, the 25 go on day 3, right? So there's 25 anglers on the water on day 3. I don't even know where I was going with this.
Super 6. So the last 6 away on the final day.
Yeah. So on the last the last portion of the weigh-in, they call up the Super 6, and it was Gustafson and Benton and Scott Canterbury, and I can't remember Brian Schmidt. And then I don't know the other 2.
Yeah, I don't remember. John Cox was up there, wasn't he? Because he had a good second day.
Cox. Who was the other one? Who was the other?
Was it Robertson? Because Robertson didn't catch a lot of fish, but he caught bigger fish.
No, I don't think.
No, it wasn't him. I can't remember, but either way, so those 6 are the last 6 away.
But it was dramatic. It was
because
super dramatic.
Canterbury took the lead and then held it for one angler, and then Brian Schmidt took the lead and held it until Gustafson came up, and Gustafson only ended up winning by a pound and a little bit of change after leading by a significant amount of weight. Now, had he gone out and caught 5 smallmouth the first 2 days, it would have been a blowout. It wouldn't have been close, but
Yeah.
Brian Schmidt, did you guys read the article that he did the interview and just like his story? What a good dude. He'd have been a great guy to win to, a good steward, and I don't know, I didn't know a whole lot about him until that. I'll send you the link, and maybe if I remember when we put this out, I'll post it in the description for everybody to read, just because he's got a cool story. But yeah, they added drama. It was dramatic. We thought it was going to be. We all kind of, I think, went into it thinking Gussie was just going to carry it through and it was over. But
I mean, he pretty much. I mean,
he kind of did, yeah.
I mean, he still won by 1.5 pounds with only catching 2 fish on day 3.
Yeah.
I mean, so he absolutely crushed it. If he could have got his limit, even if he would have had a 10-pound limit, now you're talking a 5-6 pound win.
And everybody's saying at the expo, if he catches 3, it's over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2 left some room for excitement.
Yeah, 2 left room for excitement, but everybody knew he was going to win, or when it was going to be close. But he was the odds-on favorite to win. So I'm glad he pulled it out from going wire to wire, so we don't have to hear all the drama blow up all over the place. About people stealing spots. I mean, it's one thing if guys go out and practice and multiple people find the juice, or 2 anglers find the juice, and on day 1, one gets there, and day 2, the other one gets there because they reverse the order, and then day 3, it's a boat race. Like, that's happened before. But when you haven't even practiced, or you're speculating on in practice, you're relying on information you've seen or heard or from a tournament 2 years ago, and to go steal a spot on the championship Sunday, we'll let everyone make up their minds on that.
We don't have all the details like Ben's saying, but there was another guy on it the day before, and he apparently got a talking to because he decided not to go there on the last day. So somebody must have said something. But another angler did, and he beat him there fair and square. It is public water. It's a race, but
it doesn't matter because Jeff won.
Gussie won. Like I said, if he doesn't win, maybe you hear about it. He won, and we don't ever have to talk about it again because it's like we've had the controversy that never was on here before that we've talked about.
If Ben, Pete, and Trey are fishing 3 days in a row, and Ben and Pete weigh in greenfish the first 2 days, and I weigh in brownfish, right? And you guys pull up on 3rd day and weigh in brownfish and be like, "What's going on? What's going on? Are you taking my spot?" Like, and that's kind of what happened during the weigh-in. Like, everyone's weighing largemouth. There'd be like a random smallie here and there. Gussie, smallmouth all the way through. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden on day 3, it's like, oh, smallmouth. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? So, I mean, fair is fair. Buy a faster boat if you want to beat him to the spot, right? Or just have good etiquette.
And he handled that perfectly well.
He really did. He just turned.
He didn't say anything on stage. He was humble, professional. I mean, at that point, it doesn't matter because he is now made for life. He's a classic champion. He's in the history books for bass. He got that $300,000 check. I mean, he don't care about it now.
I would have T-boned a boat with my aluminum boat just to see how it would handle. I'm just saying, I'd have had a fine in my mailbox before I got back to checking, I think. But no, congratulations to Gussie.
Yes.
Keith Pochet winning before that, but the Super Bowl bass is a little bit more important, and to see only the 2nd international winner, and then the 1st Canadian. Dave Mercer got a little emotional when he was doing his on the stage thing. Yeah. I think he was excited. He's a Canadian guy. The Aussies and them all hung out together. Carl Joggensen had some family or friends or somebody come in, and they had a big to do. So the international crowd was super fired up about it, which is great to see. And man, bass is worldwide.
It was a great event.
It was a great event and a great expo. 160,000 plus people through the doors.
Was that the final number?
Yeah, it was like 161. The largest one to date now. So they took the record back. Knoxville did.
Let's talk about Knoxville. Let's talk about what you guys thought of the event, because I thought it. So location-wise, it doesn't get much better for the consumer, the viewer, the fan out there, because everything was within a mile. So if you go there, you can walk to the launch. You can then walk to the expo. You can walk the weigh-in. There's not a huge distance. Like next year, when the Classic is at Grand Lake,
it's an hour and a half between the expo and the launch.
Yeah, it's an hour and a half between Tulsa and the launch. And I don't know where they're going to do weigh-in. We don't know if it's going to be halfway in between, down at the lake, down, up at the expo. So having in Knoxville is a great location in that regard, right? Everything's right there. I don't know. What'd you think, Trey?
Location, right? The curb appeal was there. Everything was convenient for us with OneCast. All the vendors had a relatively easy time navigating between where they were staying and where they were set up in the expo. And then obviously weigh-in was right down the road. There were some challenges. There were some logistical challenges. And this isn't a ding on Bass or anything, but these big organizations, they subcontract these companies to go in and set up these venues, get all the trash and the parking situation, the marshaling yard, whatever the case may be. So day 0, really, we roll in and, we have to go to the marshaling area. And it was underneath a bridge in the middle of nowhere.
Under the I-40.
Under the I-40 bridge. So it was a little sketch, right? But we pulled up and there were some individuals that were working there, some of the subcontractors. We were given some loose guidance. I'll just throw it out there. We were given loose guidance. There was 2 entrances to take the trailer to the convention center. One of those being on the, western side and one on the eastern side, whatever the case may be. But it was loose guidance. Like, where do we go to take our stuff?
So we went to the one that was closest to our booth.
Yeah.
Which was apparently wrong. But beside the point, just to piggyback, like, before we go into all the nitty gritty, it's a great venue for a consumer. It is, and I heard it from every single vendor, it's absolutely a nightmare as a vendor.
Yeah.
It's not convenient to unload. It's not convenient to offload. The layout of the convention center itself is not great because there's all these little side closets and places they stuck people. And
the best way to think about it,
people didn't know that there were folks in there.
Think of it like a hotel conference room is what it was.
Sort of was like that.
Where you have breakout rooms, like little closets almost off the main floor. And right, there was multiple floors here. So you had companies that got stuck in there and that had to affect them.
We were very fortunate with where we were. So yeah, the main floor, where Bass has their stage where they do the live broadcasts and all the, title sponsors have all their stuff set up, is very nice. When you started up in the second and third floor, like Ben said, it's like a bunch of conference rooms. The third floor had one kind of main room and then a bunch of conference rooms around it. And I know some friends with different companies that were in some of those side closets, and getting foot traffic in there the first day was a struggle. Wasn't great. They kind of figured out how to put some signage and things out to let people know that there were other exhibitors in there.
This doesn't even talk about the entire other building.
No, I was getting to that.
That no one went to, apparently.
The second, and then there was a second building, and that's where I was heading, where they had some other pretty big name companies. Most of the boat manufacturers over there outside of White River Marine, which is Johnny Moore's, who's a title sponsor, so he had the main building. Lowrance was over there. There were some other big companies over there, and Hook was over there actually, and they had such a small number of people that even knew it was there that they had folks out where the shuttle was dropping people off, giving away T-shirts to try to draw people into that building, and people would take a T-shirt, walk to the main building, and never come through. Yeah. It was just, the layout's not great as an exhibitor. Like I said, again, absolutely, if it's there and you've never been to one, it's the best place to go. Because like Ben said, everything's either in walking distance, it's a 1-minute shuttle ride, or they got those little rental electric scooters all over the place that you swipe your credit
Which you
card.
want to use because parking there is...
Parking's not great. And that's the other thing I was going to
In Knoxville, fix your roads. Your roads are absolutely atrocious.
But Trey, like Trey was saying, we got yelled at on day 0.
We got yelled at, but we adjusted, we adapted. The best thing you can do as an exhibitor, or even as a fan, but more as an exhibitor, is send somebody to do a recon for you. And that's kind of what Pete did. Pete went ahead and checked out where we were going to be, and we pulled up and we followed Pete because he was on the spot, right? So whether or not you're that long-haired dude that comes out and yells at us, I don't really care. We got in, we got set up, we got out, and all the exhibitors face that challenge as well. The layout was okay compared to other events. Like, it wasn't shoulder to shoulder for exhibitors. So I thought agree. That was good.
There's space. You had space to operate.
There's space. But you're right. You can get lost in that place. So if you're an exhibitor or a fan, go on to the website. Bass always pushes the Expo layout, and it has a map where everything is located, or they'll hand out that piece of paper and stuff like that too. But that was good for exhibitors. We dealt with some challenges there, and then we got
really lucky. We had great space.
Yeah.
I mean, our first one, we were right outside of the kind of main hall on the 3rd floor, and we had folks flow through going both directions. So we got lucky on that. But
yep. And then parking sucked.
Man,
parking was a nightmare.
We saw my wife get to yell at somebody. because he was trying to T-bone us, and I've never seen her angry, but man, she was not very. Well, I mean, I've seen her angry.
Demon spawn coming.
She was not very happy. Finger pointing. I mean, it was an experience. But yeah, parking. So one thing typical. This is the third classic that I've worked. With companies. I've been to a couple other ones. Typically, exhibitors have a big lot where they let all the exhibitors park. That way, you're not fighting the general public
or the college students.
The college students. The only lot they gave us was a tiny little lot. They coned off like half of it for the bass media. So you either had to get there like 2.5 hours early to get a parking spot, or you have to do what I did and just park where the guard said, "You're going to get a ticket." And I said, "Just go ahead and write it." And I just pulled in there and parked. University of Tennessee. I wasn't going to pay your ticket anyway. So yeah, parking. And then my dad came Friday.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, Friday. And he got there maybe an hour after everything opened, and it took him like an hour to find a parking spot.
There was
an attendee, so he was driving all over.
I think he parked at like a clinic or something.
I don't know. He parked somewhere.
Any other convention center, stadium, anything I've ever been to, there's massive parking around.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is a function because this was awards fair thing from like the 80s.
Yeah, I'm thinking it because of when it was built. And then the college campus being right there, I think has something to do with it too. Because I'm sure a lot of those kids that are there are living somewhat close. They're not really commuting, or they're using public transportation.
Yeah. And it's not that we're just complaining about these types of things. This event brings millions of dollars. I would submit.
You get 160,000 people coming to downtown Knoxville.
Millions of dollars to downtown Knoxville.
We met people from all over the country.
Oh yeah.
I mean, people come from everywhere. So
they come from all over the world.
Yeah. It's like we said, I know there was a large Australian contingent there.
Do you know how much a plane ticket is to and from Australia? It's like $10,000.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not cheap.
So you're welcome, Delta. But yeah, so there were logistical challenges. Everybody faced challenges, and Pete, you brought up a good point. Some of the areas you didn't even know that, like McKee Outdoors. I'll throw them out there. They have a great selection of baits. They were like in a back corner.
They had a fireplace.
Yeah,
they were just like stuck in a little back room, which
they were carrying all the mag drafts. Like you had to go search them out.
And then our friend Corey Dreyer, who was on here, he was there with Hobie. They were there with Dugout out of Georgia, and they were in one of those closets. And the first day they had terrible foot traffic, and I talked to him. And they actually went and had some of those big flags that, whatever. Yeah. And they stuck two of them by the doors so people would see them as they walked down. And then luckily Saturday, which was, wall-to-wall, treetop tall, to quote Fat Cat Noon, there was people constantly through there. It was super busy. It was great. It was hard to even make sure that you got to talk to everybody. It was so busy. But they had it for that, so people were able to, swing in there. Bass tried. They had some signage that said more exhibitors here. One of those may or may not have ended up in our trailer.
That was a pure accident.
Yeah, I don't know how that happened. But no, they tried to let people know, but it just wasn't enough. And it's not enough. Like we said, we're not knocking bass. We're not talking bad about the event overall. Just some logistical things that we know going into it. Yeah. If it goes back to Knoxville and we go, we need to, we as a company need to be prepared to potentially need to have some additional signage or something.
Because every place is going to have, pros and cons. So like, it may be a location, everyone's in a massive building like ICAST, but the launch and weigh-in may be a long ways away. So that there's always pros and cons. And as a company, both with the jigs and us as the podcast, in the future, we're going to examine these things a little bit more, because now we know this is my first time, Trey, your first time at Classic. I know Pete's been there a couple times, but if we're doing what we do now, it really helps us do that action after review, that AAR, and then to project in the future of what we need and how to plan.
I will say, compared to Greenville last year when they did Hartwell, the loading and unloading, even though there was only two areas and they didn't necessarily do the best job of putting you at the one that was closest to your booth, was much better than there. Because there you pretty much had to wheel half mile across the parking lot to get to your trailer. So again, the logistics thing there, it was better somewhat at Knoxville, even though they didn't really tell you which entrance to go to, and then you get yelled at because you don't know how to do their job for them. And but man, the people we saw, I just keep going back to that. Everybody was super friendly.
I mean, I was surprised. Like it means a lot to me, hopefully to you two as well. But to have folks come up and like, yeah, I bought a bunch of your hooks, the long neck hooks, a while back, and they helped me actually, catch fish for the open on Eufaula because I just kept having short strikes on Senko. So yeah, I love the hooks; they're phenomenal. And right,
People talked about the jigs,
the jigs too. Yeah, right, ordered the jigs before coming to get more up. We had some deals there; people were stocking up, and the success people had. I mean, that means a lot because you hear a little bit on social media and all. But it's definitely, it means a lot to hear it in person from folks, and that was definitely, I'm trying to look for the word, but it definitely raised the confidence.
You feel grateful.
I feel,
you feel grateful, and
that we're helping people catch fish. Like that's what
it is as a business, like finding your niche. And it wasn't just fishing at the Expo. The Expo is like, how do I put this? Like a professional carnival. There was all sorts of stuff at the Expo. There was things for obviously boats, tackle, but there was apparel, outdoors type things. There was food. There was a dog show with a competition to see how far the dog could jump. Dog. I mean, there were so many different things, and I know Pete hit on this before, but it's just a great event. Even if you're not into fishing, it's a great family-oriented event. The challenge that we talked about with like the layout and things like that, all that is saying you need as a business to get creative with how you're drawing your customer base, and whether or not you're launching t-shirts out of a cannon to people, right? Or like you got to figure out an artistic way to draw the crowd in, especially if you're putting a disadvantage, because those booths, they cost a significant amount of money based on square footage, right? So, I mean, that just, Ben, let's ask the question, as a small business owner going to the Classic, did you expect to make a whole lot of money?
I mean, in the back of the mind, you always hope to sell out,
right,
everything you brought. But no, I've done a few trade shows, nothing at this scale. Ultimately, I think ultimately you just try to make more than what your booth costs and whatever it costs, to run there and all. But for us as a small business, getting their name out there, the value is so much more than that. As the connections, the networking, the people that we met there, the things that we're going to do in the future that we won't quite talk about yet, but we got some things being developed, and then networking and meeting the folks that we've had on the podcast and we've talked to virtually. Mm-hmm. That's phenomenal.
Yeah, you can't put a price on relationships that you build, especially the ones that are based out of value, right? And Pete, a lot of people in the industry. I mean, I'm not going to say names, but when those people see you and they're affiliated with another company and they walk by booth 4013, which is where we were at the Expo, they're like, "Hey, what's going on? Great to see you. It's been years," or whatever the case may be. Now they see OneCast Fishing and the OneCast and all this stuff. So that's the type of thing, like as a small business, if your expectations are to sell out of your product, well, that's a great goal to have. But the marketing opportunity, the network building, like that's true value. And hopefully that's what carries you on further. Man, there were guys that showed up there with home custom like wake baits and glide baits, and they sold out. But that's the only thing they do, right? They bring 130 of them to a show and they sell them all out. They make a quick buck. They turn around, they do it again at another trade show. This is more of a long enduring, marketing opportunity for another, for different businesses.
They made their quick buck off me on them dang swim baits.
Yeah. Pete comes back with like 6 of those things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How many swim baits did you buy?
3. I only bought 3.
Oh.
Yeah.
There was a couple more I had my eye on, but we were so busy I never got over there, and I probably really didn't need to spend the money on them anyway. So
that's all right. You can let me use them.
Yeah, no.
That's okay. Collections is in the mail.
That's right. Yeah, there'll be It was great. Like Ben said, as a small business, the networking that's irreplaceable. The folks that we met, we found some things out that we didn't even know. That, like Ben said, we're not going to talk about it, but some projects that we found the people and the places that we didn't know were there. We had been brainstorming about, and so it was awesome from that standpoint. I'll give a shout out to Caraway Creek. They're a local North Carolina company. They'd been around forever. I thought they were out of business. It turns out somebody else had bought them and is bringing them back. We met them there. Got to talk to them. Glad to see that they're back because they made some really cool baits. So without that, we may not have. You might not know that they're there because they weren't at Raleigh. We didn't see them there.
I never even seen them before.
No, and I'd seen their baits before. You know, when I got down here, somebody I was fishing with had showed them to me, and then I tried to find them, and they were gone. So another guy bought the company, and they're back up. So things like that. And then just like Ben said, so many people from all over the country, all over the world. And even when they didn't buy things, like Trey said, walking by, they saw the booth. We had some OneCast stickers.
Picking up the stickers.
Some of these stickers that look kind of like that. We had them out for folks to grab. And I mean, I don't know how many we went through a pile. So
thousands of them, right?
4,000 to 5,000.
Yeah, even if they didn't buy, they have that sticker now. And they may look at it one day and go, what is that? And they Google the name, and all of a sudden they see the product. And it was, like Ben said, it wasn't about just selling out. Obviously, we wanted to, but
we sold a lot of jigs. Don't get us wrong.
We got jigs to people because we had some what we usually fish, like the factory seconds that we sold there, and a lot of folks picked those up because they were a little bit cheaper, no packaging. They may not be perfect because of some paint or whatever, and so now they've tried them. I know they're gonna like them, and then that kind of thing could lead to future sales. So if you're a small business owner and you have some marketing, and if you're in fishing or outdoors. If you're a gutter guard company, you probably don't want to go because there's always one and there's never anybody at their booth. If you have some marketing money and you want to take a trip to really help get your product out there and show people what you have, I don't think there's a better way than the Classic.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, whether you fish or not, we are plumbers, so we can get into that story real quick.
Yeah.
So our first Airbnb, we had a plumbing issue. The first night was great. Everything seemed fine. Second day, we got up to take showers. Ben took a shower, drained a little slow. Trey took a shower, drained a little bit slower. I took a shower.
You took a bath.
It didn't drain.
You would have had to take a bath at that point.
It didn't drain anymore when I showered, right? So then I flushed the toilet, and the water went down the toilet and then came up the shower drain.
And then you took a mud bath.
We knew we had a problem. So, we called the folks with the Airbnb. They had a plumber come over.
He was there almost all day.
He was there almost all day. Just for all of you, if you do rent and you have a female with you, don't flush your feminine products down the toilet because he pulled out who knows how many from years past that had backed up and eventually broke the pipe.
Listen, it was disgusting.
It was terrible.
Yeah, it was bad.
But our plumber, he did some fishing, kayak fishing. Didn't really know a whole lot about a Classic. We got to tell him about it. He had a daughter who wasn't really into fishing. She was super young, his wife. But, we told him go check it out because there's so much more than just fishing and its experience. And I don't know if he ended up making it or not. If you somehow hear this, because we did give you some stickers and check out the podcast. We appreciate you trying to get the shower fixed, and hopefully y'all got a chance to check out the Expo because if it's close to you, check it out when it's there because the Expo is a thing in itself, even if you're not there for the fishing.
Yeah. So that plumbing issue was.
I'm just remembering the smell.
It was terrible. Unfortunately, we weren't there most of the day because we had to go get set up and run errands and do a few things, but. Ultimately we got kicked out of that Airbnb because we had no indoor plumbing.
Yeah, we were homeless at that point.
And so fortunately we found a place a little bit further south in Murrayville, as we were told.
Yeah, it's not Maryville, it's Murrayville.
Murrayville. And it actually, I think, ended up being a better
awesome
location for it. It was a bigger place, in the middle of cow pastures, an old farmhouse. It actually had an extra bedroom, so when Pete's dad came by, he wasn't stuck on the couch.
No, he got to sleep with Raggedy Ann.
Yeah, it was a creepy bedroom. And if I don't know if you happen to see her Instagram story, you'll see why. Maybe we'll post that up.
Do you know who was the company that we did the Airbnb with? Not the first one, but the second one. Do you?
It was an independent
individual.
Yeah.
Her name is Jackie.
Okay, yeah.
She was phenomenal.
Jackie, if you're listening to this, you're probably not. But your Airbnb, that house was legit.
Yeah.
Like, I love it. It felt like home. The first house was great. The second house felt like home.
Yep.
Had
that old farmhouse smell, just.
And everything was vintage in it.
Yeah.
That was so cool.
If you watched our live, you got to see that.
Yeah. So go back and watch our live. But anyway, sorry to cut you off. Keep going.
No, I pretty much covered it. I mean, the second place was great. It was only like a 25-minute drive each morning up to Knoxville, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
What was that little giggle?
No, I was just thinking Pete's dad comes in. He's from Pittsburgh, close to the Pittsburgh area. What a great guy. Goes out. We go out and buy some steaks to cook, and we go to barbecue. And what's on the barbecue? A full bird's nest with like 6 eggs in there. And we're good people, I promise. Like we did not
Those
fry
birds survive. Those eggs.
We
yeah.
we made the steak in a pan and in the oven and stuff. But that we had some good times and I think it worked out for the best, man. And we got to bring our ambassador over, Larry. Larry, appreciate you coming out and hanging out with us for one of our Facebook lives or our live streams and stuff. So all in all, man, super good event, super fun time. So yeah, we brought Larry out for our live, and one of the things I want to mention, the people that you see working the fishing expos, they're not all like direct hire to the companies. Like they're brand ambassadors, or maybe they're on their pro staff or volunteers, whatever the case may be. So when you go to these expos, like, don't just think they're a direct hire into the company. It was critical. Larry brought a lot of people by the booth, right? A lot of people that knew Larry through his connections. He works for an organization himself. Like he brought his friends by. We had multiple people that we had on the show before. Destin Demarion came by the booth, like several open anglers. Like we had Harvey Horn. Stephanie came by. She fishes the MPFL. Josh Watkins, he was on the show. He fishes the MPFL. So like, brand ambassadors, friends of yours and friends of the company, like they make a huge difference in these expos. And I want to give a shout out to all of them because they brought attraction to the booth. Yeah,
that pro staff, ambassadors, brand, whatever you call it, depending on the company, are they really are the heartbeat of these shows for the most part. They're the folks that are out there tearing down, setting up, putting in work. And, you know, we had an episode where we talked about pro staff. We talked about ambassadors and all that, sponsorship, blah, 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 blah. Outside of a sponsorship requirement, if that's your goal, a great way, and we talked about it then, is to volunteer when those expos, you know, come up. And I know we'll have a bigger list that we're going to do next year. We're adding a few, and I'll as soon as we know for sure and lock that down, I'll be putting it out to our ambassadors to say, hey, when are you available? You know, come help us because we need it. And it gives the, you know, give us a chance to get around and make some of those connections, but it also gives you a chance to make those connections as an ambassador, pro staff, or whatever it is you are.
It's extremely important, you know, for the business side of it and getting help. So I've got to give a huge shout out to these two fellows sitting next to me, Trey and Pete, because them helping out with OneCast and the booth and just over the years making product. OneCast would not be where it was today without the help from these two fine gentlemen. So I can't appreciate them enough. I don't want to turn this into a love fest, but you guys know I appreciate it. And
absolutely,
you guys, it means a lot to me. You guys want to help out.
Talking about appreciating, though, I bet you the big businesses appreciated the Classic having DHL there. And that was something I had no idea that you could do that, but if they
Are they always there?
I don't know if they're always there, but like big companies who make a lot of money had the ability to ship their stuff.
Oh yeah, that's every show.
So that was pretty cool. I've never seen that before. So if you're a big company, I guess you can.
Most of your bigger companies do that. You'll see it at iCast. You see it at.
Keep buying jigs.
Most of the shows do that. yeah. So yeah, those bigger companies just show up, and usually it's shipped. They hire the local, you know, whatever facility to set it up, and they just roll in and it's ready to go. It's expensive.
Yeah. But so that's why keep buying jigs, folks, so we can do that one day.
It's definitely cool.
Before we wrap it up here, and again, this is our classic recap here. I know we talked about Poche winning because it was right there and it was the same week. Because we weren't secluded, but isolated in the way because of our requirements of being at the expo, and because our Airbnb, we had to move about 25 minutes. We weren't as close. We weren't able to do necessarily everything outside expo hours. So what is something that we didn't get to do at the Classic or in Knoxville that you wish you could have done?
I would have liked to go see the weigh-in, or at least one day of the weigh-in, right? You know, there was there was four of us working when Pete's dad showed up. But that's something that I think would have been pretty cool to see. Because there were no TVs anywhere in the expo to watch the Classic, this low quality Android phone I have was about the best we could do. So, but yeah, catching one of the weigh-in days would have been really neat. But you know, working the booth was extremely important. So,
what about you, Pete?
Yeah, I'm with Trey. Weigh in or blast off. It was tough. We were so far away, and blast off at 7:30.
We didn't want to get up
We
there.
had to leave at like 6:15,
And they had, what, 6,000 people down there, I think?
it was busy.
That was pretty cool.
But those two are really the ones weighing more than blast off, just because there's nothing like a classic weigh-in. You can feel the pulse of what's going on, and guys are out there, like you said, trying to make their career, because that's what a classic win. You become like a made man in the mafia.
Mm-hmm.
Like once you have that, there's no taking that away. So, would have liked to have got to seen that. What about you?
Sorry, I was just thinking that, you're a made man. You can't be a made man without a classic. So
That's right.
You can't be the GOAT either.
No, you can't. That was before classics.
You heard it, Bryke. He said
Before classics, and also it has
he's trying to backtrack
I'm
now.
not backtracking. Just because you're a made man doesn't mean you can't be the GOAT.
All right, Pete. But
We all know Bill Dance.
I actually wish I could have seen that drone show they had. So Bass had a drone show. I think it was the Bassmaster kickoff Thursday night. To be honest, we knew there was a kickoff thing going on, but we didn't know there was going to be a drone show. Otherwise, we did move Airbnbs. Otherwise, maybe we would have checked it out. But for looking for the pictures on social media, they had like boats flying in the sky because all the drones made the pictures. It looked like for those who may have seen the Olympic Chinese when they had the Beijing Olympics and all those crazy drone shows, it was, I think, very similar to that, but up above in the skyline of Knoxville. So that would have been awesome to experience there in person. So next time, maybe we'll.
Yeah, that was Humminbird Minn Kota put that on, and it was there's videos out there if you didn't see it. It was, I would have liked to seen it. They had trolling motor props spinning and boats driving and setting the hook on fish, and it was really cool looking. But
here's what I didn't miss. I didn't miss being hungover walking into the expo the next day like a lot of people. And I can tell you right now,
especially Sunday.
I'm telling you, like when you see the looks on some of these people's face when they're walking in, they're like, I do not want to be here. And I can tell you that's the beauty of getting older, in my opinion, is like I'm not going to go hammer it down the night before getting up, 6 a.m. So I'm glad we didn't have that event.
One other cool piece of news was Ike and Ellie getting into the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, he did. Yep.
Announced by the GOAT Bill Dance. When you're the GOAT, you get to tell people they got in. So
Who's apparently not a made man.
he made Bass. So, anyway,
it was cool. I mean, Flambeau was right next to our booth, and they had Ike there. And the line of people to see Mike, Ike, and Ellie and screaming, "Never give up!" Like it was amazing. And there's people in this industry that are heroes and role models to people. And I think when we talk about being a steward of the profession and carrying on a legacy that Bass is trying to create, I think that's what they're talking about. And there's so many children that are just...
No, go ahead, sorry.
I was just going to say, there's so many children that are impressed by these individuals. So
there's so many young kids there. High school, high school anglers.
Yes.
There's a lot of them.
It was really cool. So the last Sunday, as things started to die down, I was wandering around talking to folks, trying to get some things lined up for the podcast. And I swung by Missile Baits booth, and I was talking to Logan Latuso. And it was right when Ike came to Missile, because he's with Missile Jigs, Missile Baits. Right when Ike came over there, they kind of had a professional angler moment. And, because he's a rookie, so they were, kind of don't really know each other, but I congratulate him on his finish at Okeechobee, blah, blah, blah. But Logan looked right at him and said, I've only ever read 2 books cover to cover, and one of them was your book, Never Give Up, and I probably read it 4 or 5 times. Yeah. So when you think about that, that's a guy that's a rookie on the elites this year, and he just met somebody that's probably an idol that he's looked up to. And I know, Ike and Ellie was somebody I watched growing up because he was kind of a local guy being from Pennsylvania. There wasn't a lot of anglers. There's more now that have made more of a name, but
he's from PA?
Yeah,
he's from
Philly.
Delaware.
No, he's from Philly.
Oh, that's why. Because he used to fish the Delaware River.
Yep. Yeah, he's from Philly. So, to see how much draw he still has, even though he took a year off 3 years ago, he's only fished 1 year back with bass. Man, that line for Flambeau was wild. I mean, it was like around the building.
I was going to see if he could sign my forehead, but I never got around to it. So.
And
the line to get in the expo too every day was
crazy.
Impressive.
Yeah.
Just wrapped around the building, down the block. So,
and I will say we got lucky because we were right next to Flambeau. So when all those people got done with Vicanelli, they just had to walk on by.
Yep, and they had to check out the old snagless jigs.
Exactly. Well, I think I had a great time at the Classic. It was I'm looking forward to hopefully going back in the future. Of course, next year it's halfway across the country for us in Tulsa, but we'll see what we can do. You guys got any last parts on the Classic?
Thoughting parts.
I don't know.
Parting thoughts.
So yeah, this is how
Thoughts of the parting. So, cool week, man.
Yeah.
Cool week. Keith Poche winning out of his little tin rig in the BPT, turnaround fishing classic. Gussie winning out of his tin rig, first Canadian to win the Bassmaster Classic on the same lake he won 2 years ago. Our first time together, all three of us going to a Bassmaster Classic. Your dad joining us, the plumbing backing up in the house and moving Airbnbs. Like, all in all, great week. And oh, by the way, we got to give a shout out to your wife too, who is helping us out a lot from the cash-in booth, coming over and taking pictures and stuff like that. Her photography is phenomenal. So just all in all, great week. Running into old people, running into new people. Appreciate everyone's support, man.
Yeah, no, it was awesome. Getting to meet new customers, old customers, some old pro staff from when Ben first started.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Come by the booth.
Ryan, yep.
It was awesome. And my dad, I thought he was coming to be an observer and just
Me too.
Walk around, and he ended up jumping right into the booth and slinging OneCast jigs like he was a pro. So thank him for that help, because it was Saturday. Without him would have been pretty rough because it was busy. But yeah, just an awesome time. It was good. Ben, Trey, and I know each other pretty well, but definitely feel like I know these guys better, and that we're better friends now after getting some time in the evenings. Might have a beverage and sit around and tell stories about what made us the men we are today. So it was awesome.
Yep.
I don't know what else to say. Like it was great.
It was a great event. Hopefully, if you guys haven't been to a Classic, you'll be able to get one to the future. And then hopefully you'll see us out there. So next week, as we finish up, so our next episode we've got planned already. We got Corey coming on. He's a North Carolina fish biologist. So for those in North Carolina, we're going to be talking things about the F1 bass stocking. We might be talking about who killed the grass at Harris, because no one seems to know.
We're definitely going to talk about the grass.
We're going to talk about a bunch of things that may be related specifically to North Carolina, but for those who are outside the state, the biology and kind of the impacts we're going to talk about probably applies to a lot of places around the country.
Yeah, we're going to talk about the Alabama bass invasion and a few other things that will translate to other parts of the country. So definitely something to listen to, and I'm sure there's going to be some good warnings heated about it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the conversation.
North Carolina is taking care of business.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, God, it's a toad, son. It's a toad, dude.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day.